Welcome to the channel. If you are new here, I am Denise Brady. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. And over here, we do a lot of wellness, mental health, how to heal from childhood trauma, how that impacts us as adults. And so I really want to talk about this story with Twitch and Allison coming out and sharing a lot of details. I want to say trigger warning. A lot of content here today could be triggering for some people. So make sure you take some time, relax, understand what bits and pieces you want to hear, and take a step back. So let's get into it. And make sure you hit that like, you subscribe, and enter the chat. Let me know your thoughts on this whole situation because it's very complex. Now, as a lot of us know, approximately 2 years ago, Twitch, succumbed to mental health things. All right. For some people, they might feel like 2 years is a long time. Some people might feel like 2 years is not enough time to be healed and working through grief and loss. And when it comes to Allison, I feel like this whole story, her life being so public, Twitch's life being so public, has a lot to do with not only grief, but shame. And how both these things intersect and ultimately, I think, had a hand in him not being here anymore. Now, Allison in the last couple of months has been a little bit more public about moving on, being in a relationship. Some people have scrutinized her, feeling like it's too soon, taking more time for herself. And what does this really do for Twitch's legacy? And would he really want her living her life the way she is? Now, let's get into this article because I feel like as much as it is about Allison and Twitch, it's also about the people around them. What happens when you lose a loved one unexpectedly at the hands of mental health? And for Allison, it seems like she wanted answers. She wanted to know what happened. What did she miss? Like a lot of people, when they have family members who lose their lives to mental health, to substance abuse, and they were just the happiest person. They were smiling. What was going on those last couple of days? What did I miss? How can I help somebody else? And I think Allison is trying to share her own story to help other people. But did we need so many details? Okay. Now, it says Allison made a devastating discovery about her late husband, Twitch, weeks after Ellen DeGeneres show, longtime DJ, was pronounced deceased in 2022. So, like I said, it's only been 2 years, okay? She discovered while she was going through some of his things, he had a cornucopia of substances, okay? Different pills. She didn't even know what some of this stuff was. She had to look it up in her phone. So it sounds like he was really coping with some demons, some things that he couldn't tell anyone about. And the only way he felt like he knew how to cope with it was to numb himself and use substances. And a lot of people, when you think about addiction, a lot of it comes from people wanting to escape, want to escape trauma, their life, the different things that they are going through, and not feel at times. But it sounds like as close as they were, there was not enough safe spaces for him possibly to feel like he could share what he was really going through, because it sounds like as we go through more of this article, there was more things that she discovered. I was with one of my dear friends and we were cleaning out the closet and picking out an outfit for his funeral. She says in an interview with People, it was really a triggering moment for me because there was a lot of things I discovered in our closet that I didn't know existed. It was alarming to me to learn that there was so much happening that I had no clue about, she continues. It's really a scary moment in my life to figure out, but also helped me process what he was going through and hiding so much. And there's been a lot of shame in that. Allison goes on to say, throughout their 9-year marriage, she details her healing journey in her new memoir. So this is about a book. And I want to know from you guys, as much as these details are hard, some people don't want to hear them. Some people want to still hold on to the idea that Twitch was this always happy person, but deep down inside, he was going through some things. But at what level of detail do we need to know? And it's not only about us also, it's about her kids. I think about as a therapist, her kids hearing these things. The two youngest ones are very young, but her teenage daughter, all right, having to hear about not only her dad's hidden secrets, but in the public eye. going to school with people who know about who her father was, the pressures of that, not only having to grieve the loss of your father in such a public way, but now hearing about his inner demons. Some of the things that sound like he didn't want anyone to know. Okay. It says she believed that he was they had very honest communication, including about his marijuana use. At times, after their kids would go to bed, he would quietly slip away to the guest house to drink or indulge. That was his alone time. It was time to recharge, and that was scary, she says. Oh, sorry, that was okay. So they had some communication about the level of substances, but not the details of them. As she combed through his journals, hoping to find clarity and closure after his death, Allison learned her husband had a hidden, painful secret from even those close to him. He was wrestling with a lot inside, and that he was trying to self-medicate and cope all those feelings because he didn't want to put on anyone. How many people can relate to not feeling like you can feel safe enough within yourself to be able to speak those things out loud? How many years have maybe you been stuffing pain, hurt, experiences that you feel like you can't tell the one person that you were in a relationship with, siblings, what you went through, because there's just so much shame around it? He was wrestling with a lot inside. He was trying to self-medicate and cope with all those things because he didn't want to put it on anyone, because he loved everyone so much. He alluded to being essayed by a male figure during his childhood in several of his journal entries. He didn't want other people to take on his pain. So let's sit with that for a second. Okay. Do we feel like this information needs to be public? I see on one hand, me being a therapist, trying to break the stigma on mental health, essaying men, women, whatever you identify as, how this can help someone else seek help, someone else see that they're not alone. But I also think about the implications of his family hearing this, 'cause I know she doesn't have the best relationship with his family anymore, his friends, his children. Some of this stuff should have been kept private, because the internet loves to run with these things. And I think people are still in love with the image that we were left with, that I'm not sure they're ready to speak out loud some of these things. I feel like people are so used to stuffing, keeping things a secret, being told that, oh, that stuff we keep in our house. We don't go outside and tell nobody about it. But that, to me, keeps people in pain. Okay. That keeps people riddled with the burden of my secrets, the burden of what will people think about me if they know that this happened to me. While she felt betrayed by his secrets, Allison has also gained a new outlook over time. I wonder, the complexities of having your husband die the way he did, find out his secrets, the word betrayal. Okay, that's an interesting word to describe the situation. I'm trying to figure out in my own life, would I feel betrayed? Use that word. Would I feel shocked? Yes. Would I feel just mystified by, what am I reading? But betrayed, I don't know if I would use that word. Okay. So she continued to read his journals. Now, when it comes to the journal thing, I'm also hoping that she never releases these. Because it's also something like the world does not need to read these journals. I don't even know if I feel like the world needs to know this secret about him, because it seems like it's something that he dealt with so much that I think if he wanted the world to know, I wonder if he would have told people on their own. And she says, reading his journals and even going back into the books he had read and things he was highlighting and lying really gave me a better perspective of where he was in life and the type of things he was struggling with. He did have it did have me feel a lot. See, who wrote this? It did have me feel a lot of empathy towards him and sadness for all the pain that he was holding. Okay. She underscores that she's now sharing his struggles in the aftermath of death in hope of saving even just one person. So I get that, but I also just like, do we have to publicize everything? Okay. Could she have told us about maybe his mental health struggles due to something related to childhood without naming the incident. But at the same time, we need to break the stigma and talk about these things, because there's a lot of people sitting with going through the exact same thing that tWitch is. And maybe if he was in a place where he felt safe or had the resources or the courage maybe to speak about some of these things, he might still be here. But I find myself very conflicted about discussing it so publicly. But I do get, let's break the stigma, let's talk about it. It was really hard to put all the pieces together through certain discussions, even with friends and things that have been said. Reading through his journals, you realize he went through a lot as a child and never faced it. So many people. It's hard to think that he never opened up to someone and wanted to face it to get through the other side. I can tell that she probably has not been through trauma herself, because there's a misunderstanding about why didn't he just want to talk about it? Speaking those words as a man that you were, you know, assaulted by another male as a child, there's a lot of stigma around that, a lot of shaming, a lot of guilt. And I think he was shackled in that shame and guilt. And I think the world got tWitch, and I think at home she probably got Steven. And both these people were fighting this common demon inside of them, but who was the one that got to show more themselves? I think Steven ended up becoming more suppressed inside, and tWitch is who the happy-go-lucky person that everyone fell for, that the little boy inside him, the inner child, just got stuffed. And Steven was probably more of the inner child, was more of the introvert, the more hurt, quiet one. But we didn't get to see that. We saw more of who the world, maybe he felt like the world would accept more. While Boss Who was acting withdrawn, showering less frequently, smoking more in the morning and at night, acknowledged to her that he was going through a low period. He was careful about his wording. He probably didn't want to worry her, but I wonder if he had maybe some past hospitalizations or, low moments where when you are in a place where you're having these low moments, depression episodes, sometimes you don't want to admit it to yourself. You don't want to admit it to other people. And you also don't want to say it out loud because you don't want to get hospitalized. Okay. And I wonder, were there any spaces in his life where he felt like he could really show up as himself? Because it sounds like even though they were this happy-go-lucky couple, dancing, doing things online, he really didn't feel like there was a safe space for him. And I wonder, from as a wife myself, how would that make me feel to know that my husband never felt safe with me to share some of these deeper, darker things? There's just so many different layers here that I think it's good that we're having this discussion, because a lot of other people are facing the same thing. We're having a lot more in recent news of people losing their lives to mental health. That it's good that we're talking about it. It's good that it's becoming more, I think, destigmatized. But I wonder if people are really ready to know the truth behind some of the people that they love, some of the people they grew up watching on TV, and how they are struggling with their mental health. So it says at the time he was closing out 8 years on Ellen, while also in a run as a judge on So You Think You Can Dance. Still, we were getting ready for this big year. I wonder what the year was going to be. She said this big year. It seems like, he's taking a rest period, which he's never had. In hindsight, Allison believes he was deeply struggling with chastising between the introverted tWitch, his beloved public persona, and the introverted Steven. Okay, a man who yearned to be perfect. The perfect husband and dad to their 3 kids. See, I think a lot of people are facing that. Like, when you have not dealt with your childhood trauma and you're in the public eye and you have this public persona, the world falls in love with that person for so long that you wonder, can I be this other person? Are they ready for this? And in this state, where he was, it felt like he didn't really believe people were ready for the Steven. So he continued to be tWitch even up until he wasn't here anymore. When I think about my husband at the time, I would think, I love that tWitch is such a great performer, but when he comes home, he feels safe enough to be Steven. I I don't know if he really felt that way, that he could be Stephen at home. Really sad, just really sad. I was for him for so long, and that he's been the entire relationship. I was like, it's a beautiful thing that we can both be. It just seemed like there's a lot of things she didn't know about him. I think even at home at times he played a role, and I think a lot of men feel like they have to play the role of being this Superman, this strong person, and not being able to be vulnerable, not putting anything on Allison, but the conditioning. I wonder where that came from as a child to suppress that introverted side, and everyone loves and feeds into the extrovert, so that's who I need to be. Looking back, Allison realized his two different personalities were increasingly battling each other. As I discussed, the morning before he went missing, he dropped off his daughter at school. She was the last person in their family to see him alive, and his final words to her was, I wish I could be your Superman. That's hard. To be a teenager, to know you were the last person to have a conversation with your dad, have so many unanswered questions. I'm sure people came at her like, what was it like driving to school? Did he say anything? Did he do anything? All of that pressure. Okay, all that pressure. And having someone say the last words you didn't really process at the time being anything wrong. That's really hard, especially as a teenager, Allison said, knowing that Wesley still attends the same school. She handles it with grace, more grace than she has to. And she goes on to talk about feeling a lot of emotion. It looks like her book comes out in February, My Story of Love, Loss, and Embracing the Light. This far. Okay. I've been so fortunate to have resources to help me that I've teamed up with. She's teamed up with NAMI, the Maple Counseling Center. I learned about so many other resources of a lot of people. It's important to have an open vessel to them when we're going through it. And she puts the crisis lines down here, as I also did myself. But yeah, I wanted to just talk more about the story and how I think that it's hard for people to live in their truth. I think it's hard for people to accept that they're facing, dark times. And we just don't talk enough about how mental health is exploding once again. We saw it during the pandemic. We saw it post-pandemic. But I think now, we're already at the top of the year and we're hearing so many different stories, PTSD, anxiety, depression, all of it is coming up again. But I wonder if the world is really paying attention. And as much as I'm seeing that, Shushi has said so much. As a wife, I examine that. As a therapist, I'm like, she should, because then it breaks the stigma. But then I wonder about the children. But we are about to go through another mental health crisis. But I want to know your thoughts about healing from your demons, the things that we suppress, we push down. Do you think that if people had known more about what he was going through, do you think that it would have changed things? Are people really ready to stop hiding behind what happens in this house stays in this house? There's been a lot of negative things said about Allison since this article came out, but I thought we have to continue to break the stigma. We have to talk about these things, and it's important to recognize it's okay to not be okay. But I want to know your thoughts. Let's discuss it in the comments. If you are new here, make sure you stay, you like, you subscribe, because we can get into it. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.